Welcome to the Seattle Investors Club podcast with Julie Clark and Joe Bauer, where we share the nuts and bolts of real estate investing from our 20-plus years in the industry. Sit back, relax, listen, and immediately take action. Are you ready? Here we go.
Welcome to the Nuts and Bolts of Real Estate Investing podcast. My name is Joe Bauer, and I'm here with my co-host, Julie Clark. Julie, how you doing today?
I think you already know, Joe, I'm a little hyper today as the fact that we're starting this podcast about 30 minutes late because I can't stop talking because I'm so excited about everything going on in our world. I can barely stand it. And so aside from the fact that I just talked your ear off for 30 minutes, now tell us out in podcast land where you are, one of my absolute favorite places on the planet. What's going down?
We just arrived via train along the coast to Cinque Terre, Italy, which I guess the small town we're in is called Rio Maggiore, or I'm probably screwing that up, and somebody can correct me in the podcast notes if they'd like to, or on social media. But it's wonderful. We have a apartment view here of the ocean. I'm looking at it right now if you guys want to imagine it. And there's a hillside with little villas all over the place.
It is one of the most picturesque places on the entire planet. I was telling Joe, that's where I was literally stranded on 9/11. Myself, I had gone to Europe for a month, flying my friends in and out. 9/11 happened, and I was right there at Cinque Terre at that time. So I have crazy memories of that place. So it's like 5 towns along the Italian Mediterranean, coast there, right? And you hike in between the towns and make sure you have your swim trunks on every day. Rule number 1. Yeah. Can't wait to see all those photos. I'm so super stoked. So how long are you going to be there?
We'll be here until Friday. So we've got some good hiking to get in.
And then where are you heading from there?
Then we pretty much just head back up to fly out. We're going to Lake Como for a day or so.
Ooh.
Have you ever been there?
Oh yeah, man, yeah. Italy, I get it all. I'm an Italy nut. I actually stayed at a 5-star hotel in Lake Como, and across from Lake Como is Bellagio, I believe, and that's where George Clooney hangs out. So I went over there looking for You could probably go see George and Amal's, or what's her name, Amal Clooney, his wife, and you can go see you might see him cruising around town on his Harley or something. So say hi if you see him.
All right. Tell him Julie says hi. Yeah.
Yeah. So man, we're so excited today, and to continue on the excitement. We know that there is a lot of excitement out in our real estate investing community right now about note investing. So today's topic, we're going to go deep dive with one of my wonderful good friends, Marishka Pilch of Evergreen Success, of the duo Larry and Marishka. So we just want to give a shout out to some of our other friends who have been talking, like on WARE, for example, in particular, Beth Johnson with Flynn Family Lending. Shout out to Beth, who did an awesome post. I happen to grab Marishka here on this podcast because I talk to Marishka all the time, and that is also her area of focus. So at the end, Beth, hopefully keep listening because I got a big request. So shout out to the women of real estate, the smart women who are contributing to the conversation. But without further ado, I want to reintroduce you to my friend, Marishka Pilch of Evergreen Success. Check out evergreensuccess.com. She's a full-time note investor, and better probably said, a full-time, as she'll probably tell you, cash flow investor. And if you guys don't know who the dynamic duo of Larry and Marishka are, you've probably been living under a rock, right? So, welcome. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm super, super happy to be here, and thank you for that intro. And Joe, I'm completely jealous right now. We're enjoying some lovely weather here in the Puget Sound, but I could probably hang in Italy for a while right now myself.
Man.
So.
Y'all should come on out.
Yeah, absolutely.
My God. I don't know. I absolutely have no idea how you're going to assimilate Joe back into mainstream life. I don't know how you're going to do it. I can't wait to see how long you sit in town, and I don't think it'll be long. But so we're going to kick it off here today because I've been talking these guys' ears off for 30 more minutes before we even jumped on with you all out there in podcast land, because we're so excited about what's going on in real estate and all the awesome opportunities and all our smart friends. And we just love everybody out there. I just love everybody. I'm in I don't know what it is. I'm turning the big 50 this month, guys.
Woo-hoo!
So, yeah, I know. You can thank my Danish mother, I'll say for the no wrinkles quite yet hitting me and keeping my hair not gray. But, what's happening to me as I get older and I have a lot of my investor friends are younger than me and they're so smart. I'm so impressed with all you guys. They're way smarter than me. And it's so fun to sit out there and listen to all you guys and then sort of try and get into the conversation via my own special and selfish podcast, this being one today, topic that I'm also super interested in and getting way more involved in with my friends like Marishka and Beth, as you'll hear me shout something out to them at the end. But one thing I want to say today is there's a major disclaimer that I want to shout out that today Marishka and I, Joe and Larry, if he's around, this is in no way are we providing any legal or financial advice to you guys. So we just want to make that clear before we get started here. So everybody raise their hand if they understand that. Okay, good. Appreciate that. I see you guys all out there in virtual eyeball land. And so we'll just jump into it. So Joseph, just kick us off. Or what can we your Italian name?
Giuseppe? No.
Giuseppe. Yes, let's go with that. Giuseppe. Kick us off today.
All right, here we go. So we've had you on before, Marishka, and I believe it's podcast number 59. So if people would like to do a deep dive into lease options, they should check out number 59.com/59. But today we'd love to hear what daily life looks like for the dynamic duo of you and Larry. So how do you guys spend your time these days?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And I think that's really the reason why Larry and I really gravitated towards notes is because of the lifestyle. I mean, you're over in Italy right now, and that's super awesome. And the thing about notes is that it's a transportable business. If anything in real estate could be virtual, it's notes. There's so many, because you're owning the paper, you're not dealing with the physical real estate, but you're controlling that real estate with the paper. And so if you have a computer connection, if you have a phone connection, you can do this business from anywhere. And so we have literally done note deals while sitting on the lanai of our condo in Kauai. It can be done, and we do it. So I think that's the thing. I mean, not to say that it's not work, because anything when you're managing money and when you're managing wealth, you need to be an active participant in it. But by definition, performing notes are considered passive income in the eyes of the IRS. And so, once you've done that initial work and you've analyzed and performed your due diligence on the note asset and you've purchased it and placed it in your portfolio, and you now have a loan servicer who is handling the collections and interfacing with the borrower, you're kind of done. You need to check your monthly bank balance and, see where things are and be aware if there's any changes or hiccups or late pays or things like that. But once you've done that, you're done, and the money just keeps coming in. And so it is a great, it's a great cash flow mechanism. It's a great, passive, and I use that word in quotes, vehicle. And really it's, and these days, I think this is a particularly hot button phrase. It's about wealth preservation.
You know what I'm feeling in the community? Because honestly, a lot of us have been growing up together over the last 5 years, maybe in some cases more, where people started out as, oh, I'm going to wholesale or I'm going to flip. And because as a community that we have out here in the Pacific Northwest, as well as our national reach as a real estate investing community, which is really, you and Larry are totally dialed into that on a national level. Hold on, I think I hear echoing, so I'm going to turn off my phone. You guys hear any echoing?
I think you're good.
Okay. That people are evolving past like, shit, I'm tired of flipping houses because it's a day job. I'm working harder for more risk and maybe money, maybe not. And they're looking at alternatives to taking back what's even more precious than money, which is your time. And noting can be one of those vehicles. And I'm watching because that's my job, because I'm always looking for what's the hot topic and where are things moving and where are things pivoting. I've noticed, I can see the evolution of an investor. So I know what their path is almost going to be because I've been hanging around and watching some of my smartest friends evolve, including Tarl and Jan and Jimmy Tang and myself. And
there's a lot of rock stars in the community for sure.
Yeah, but it's interesting how they've pivoted. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that
quietly pivoted, by the way.
Yeah, some quietly, some not so quietly. But I mean, what's interesting is that we all realize we want to work smarter, not harder. And you start off maybe working way hard, and then you realize, whoa, that was okay for a minute. But note investing is one of those that we're telling you, if you guys are getting plugged into real estate investing and the whole concept of what that is now, and you're in this community and you're with, coming to my Tuesday mastermind down in Burien every Tuesday, which we'll talk about at the end, man, are you going to get a head start. I wish I had that, back in the day. So I love our community, and I just want to say to all of you listening, whether you're in Seattle or San Francisco or Portland or wherever you are, even in the Midwest, I know people are listening, we love you guys, and it's more fun if we stay together and do this all together and help each other, without any snarkiness or any I'm better than that. There is no answer. Real estate investing, there is no right way to do it. There is no one way is great, or there is no success. The success is your own success. It has nothing to do with anybody else. Nothing. There is no top-notch investor. You're a top-notch investor if you set a goal for yourself about the reason why you're doing it in the first place, and you are achieving that goal. Period.
You're absolutely right. And I mean, you can do this business at whatever level and scale you wish to do. Some people want to scale up and have a big operation, and that's awesome. That's not for me. You can also do it as a absolutely solopreneur. I'm lucky in that Larry and I both have a passion for this business, and so we're able to do it together as a team. And we do interact with a lot of other folks as part of our business, but you can do it any way you want to. And the thing that I love about this business too is that there's 1,000 ways to make money in real estate. And I've seen you and many other people, in our community. And I'm like, wow, that is so awesome what they're doing. And sometimes, quite frankly, I get a little jealous and I'm like, man, I should be doing that, But then I kind of come back to say, wait, this is my space. This is my niche, and it's a great niche. Is it for everybody? Maybe not. But I think that especially as we start seeing the market change, I mean, let's face it, we've been on this awesome bull run in housing for a decade now, and literally, I mean, certainly there have been people who have lost money over the last 10 years, but by and large, you could make a lot of mistakes and still come out okay. But we've hit the peak, I think. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball. You don't have a crystal ball, but we're seeing some signs of things kind of getting bubbly, things kind of getting percolaty, and so we don't know. And so people are starting to shift mentally and going, hey, do I want to take on all this risk? Do I want to be, putting myself, and you said it very, very well just a few minutes ago. I mean, when you're in the flip world, you really are trading a lot of time for money. And so, you might make a big payoff, but you have to spread that big payoff over how long was I in that deal? And then you start looking at it as a monthly payout, and it looks a little bit different. But
yeah, and with that said, like everybody makes their cash, however they make their cash, however they enjoy make their cash.
Absolutely.
I love being a broker. I love it. I love everything about it, right? I love it. I love it. And so any of you that needs a broker, I'm your gal, give me a call. I absolutely love it. Now, do I need to do that? Do I need to spend my time doing that? Really, I probably don't, honestly, at this point for me, okay? But I love it. So that's what I want to do. Yeah. And people forget that you should be doing what you want to do. So however you make your cash, or so you can do what you like, or however you gotta do what you like. So you can, so you just get to simply do what you like. And then you'll find ways to make cash and to do bigger things and grow your wealth. By just doing what you like. If you like being a mega agent or flipping 50 homes a year because it's fun and you enjoy the process and you've got creating a team, for all means, that's awesome, right?
Yeah. My brother, for example, he's a fabulous finish carpenter, and you won't ever hear his name in our circle because he has his own group of clients, and he just does a lot of repeat business, word of mouth business, and he doesn't market, he doesn't do anything, but he loves doing fine finish carpentry, and he excels at. Does he do other things? Sure. If the opportunities come up, but that's his passion. And it always has been since he was a little boy. I remember, he just really cared about doing fine woodwork,
Yeah. So, everybody just stay calm and do what you like. And the rest, and you know what the number one thing is that I feel is play nice with others, be nice to others, engage with others, share your ideas with others, and have a mindset of abundance while you're doing what you like to do, and continue to educate yourself. And the best place to do that, aside from all the cool conferences and stuff that are around the country, and there are some, is through your local real estate investing community. And we are so lucky here that we have a bunch of different venues for that. And we all support, and I shout out to Fixated on Real Estate and WARI and Cascadia Alliance, Troy's Group, and all the others, absolutely. Right? What is it? Real Estate at Work.
Yeah, I learn from those folks every day.
Go to all of them, right? Go to all of them. Go to all of them, and then come down and see us on a Tuesday. And we are actually going to have a handful more locations of our broker investor mastermind. So we won't jump into that today, but we'll be rolling those out for you guys soon, because it's damn awesome. That's why. So, okay. So let's jump in. So Marishka, what is the difference? We're going to start a little slow here. What's the difference between a person who offers seller financing, like they have a property and they offer seller financing, so they're carrying a note, versus a note investor?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of folks who maybe are mom and pop property owners. Maybe they have one house, maybe they had a few rentals, and they might have decided to offer seller financing as a way to sell their property. It's offering financing is another amenity. It's like having a deck or a great yard or an awesome kitchen. It's an amenity that's attractive to a lot of people. So you don't have
a real estate term, that is a, really great real estate term to use, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, somebody can be very unsophisticated in the real estate investing space and still offer a house on seller financing. Now, a note investor is somebody who, they might, as part of their business, they might acquire or sell real estate with seller financing, and that's just part of their business model. But we also do something else where we operate in what's called the discounted note space, where we actually seek out notes that have already been created by someone else. It might have been a bank. It might have been that seller financing, mom and pop person or small, investor, what have you, who's wanting to dispose of their maybe their rental inventory, but they still want to get that cash flow. We might go in and buy their notes, and then as we basically become the new lender. And so the terms of the note for the borrower remain the same. If they had a 6% note amortized over 30 years, fixed rate, or maybe it had a balloon or whatever, whatever the terms of the note are, remain the same for the borrower. However, I might have negotiated to buy that note at a discount. So for example, let's say there was this isn't a realistic number here in Washington state, but let's just say there was $100,000 note and they'd been making payments for, several years, and the note balance is now down to around $90,000. I might buy that note for $75,000 or $80,000, and
from the note holder.
And so what happens is I'm still owed $90,000, even though I only bought it for $75,000 or $80,000, right? Yeah. And so right there, you can take whatever the yield was and boost it because you now have a discount, and so you're still owed these other payments.
Yeah, and what's the risk? I mean, you know what I mean? It sounds, less risky than flipping a house.
Well, I mean, in my mind, it certainly is less risky. You need to have the capital, of course, in order to acquire a note. But quite frankly, if you're looking in other parts of the country, as I do, in addition to around here, we also look heavily at the Midwest and the Southeast, where it's very common to have lower price band housing, perfectly nice houses for under $100,000. And so our average note rate will be somewhere between $40,000 and $80,000 as far as the price of the note, or rather unpaid balance of the note. And but here's the thing: it is secured by real estate, and because they're mostly owner-occupied notes, there's predictable payments. And so, and then because it is secured by real estate, it's recoverable. So if somebody's in the stock market, for example, and the value of their stock goes down, there's not a whole lot you can do about that. The company can go out of business and you're just left holding your hands, going, oh my gosh, what do I do? Nothing. The same can be said, not that there's anything wrong with it, but I'd say you need to be very careful when you're lending on flip houses. You need to know what you're doing. You need to know what the builder is doing. You need to know what the market is doing, because if there is a shift in the market and that property loses value, it's higher risk. Higher risk equates to higher rates in many instances. But, you need to be aware of that. And that's one thing I think people need to be very cognizant of, is what their investment to value is. Not just their loan to value, but their actual investment to value.
Well, I mean, if you can't, like a house out in the Midwest, out in Atlanta somewhere, market goes down, the value goes down. So you must have certain parameters that you're sticking to certain loan to values to protect any downside.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, that does happen. I mean, that's just part of our market cycles, right? But in different parts
but there's
of the
less
country,
variables. Is there, it seems to be like it's more predictable a little bit. I mean, you have
yeah,
less variables that are out of your control, maybe.
there's
What I'm
less.
making this
Yeah.
up as I go, right? I'm just talking to you like nobody else is listening.
Well, I believe there's less volatility in market price in the Midwest and Southeast than there is on the coast. So our market, we've had this crazy, run up where our houses, I mean, we have a house that, a couple of years ago when we acquired it, it was, like 400,000, and now it's 600,000, and that's just in a few years' time. You don't see those types of swings in other parts of the country, but at the same time, so you're not going to be buying a property necessarily for appreciation. But let me give you an example. Like we had a property that we had held a note on, and the house was worth probably about $90,000. And the unpaid balance of the note was $50,000, and we picked it up for $42,000. Now, the monthly payment on that house was just about, principal and interest was just about $500 a month. Now, in addition to the fact that my investment to value was less than 50% of the house value, right? Because it was 90,000 is what the house was valued at, and we invested 42. So there's that nice cushion there of investment to value. Another thing that helps protect us and is part of our due diligence when we're evaluating these notes is what happens if that borrower stops paying? Well, guess what? In that area, I could rent that house for about $1,200.
Right. That's one of the questions that I'm gonna get to here is on the types of exit strategies. But let's save that for a minute. Let me ask you, what would be considered like a good discount?
Well,
am I echoing you guys? Sorry, I feel I can hear myself echoing. Do you guys hear me echoing at all? Joseph?
I've got a little bit of echo from you, yeah.
Well, I apologize, guys. We might roll with that today. Let me unplug my mic and re-plug it in and see if that helps. Can you hear me?
Can hear you.
Even worse. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely hear you. I need to hear you talk more to know if there's an echo. There's a little bit there, Julie. It's not bad, though.
Okay, guys. Sorry about that. Admin. Little technical difficulties. So what's considered a good discount on a note? You know what I mean? Like what would it be like? You'd be like, oh, that's a score, or what's average? Does that make sense?
Well, so it depends on a couple of things. One is you're looking at performing notes versus non-performing notes. And once upon a time, we could pick up non-performing notes for about 30 cents on the dollar. That is not the case today. Non-performing notes, there's definitely been a big surge in interest. A lot of, recovering rehabbers are looking at non-performing notes as a way to acquire assets at a discount. And so they're now trading around 65 cents on the dollar. So it's not as good a play as it once was. Performing notes, which, they perform. They have a good pay history. They've been making their payments on time, and so there's going to be a lot of variables that will go into it. But I'd say, as a general rule, 10 to 15% off of the unpaid balance. But it could be more, it could be less, and it just depends on the various characteristics of the note, including good chain of title and where it's located. Is it in a judicial versus non-judicial foreclosure state? What the overall property value might be, and what the rents might be in that area. So there's a lot of different things that might go into it. What's the borrower's history like? What's their credit look like? What kind of down payment do they have? Or and then those things don't even matter after they've been making payments for a few years. It's like I don't really care what their credit is if they have a spotless pay history. So there's a lot of different things that go into it. But I'd say as a general rule, probably about 10 to 15% off the unpaid balance.
So explain judicial versus non-judicial and how that affects where you invest or how investors might decide to
Yeah.
go note
Well,
investing.
and again, that's going to be more of an issue if you're going after the non-performing market. So we don't concern ourselves with it as much. But different states have different rules as to how you can foreclose. And generally it depends on, there's different ways that you can have a promissory note. And let me ask you this. In Washington, do we use a deed of trust or a mortgage in Washington state?
Deed of trust.
Well, you know what? That's mostly true. In Washington state, you actually get to choose whether you have a mortgage or a deed of trust. But most people will choose a deed of trust because the foreclosure process is by statute, not in front of a judge. So we actually have a choice in Washington of whether we have a mortgage or a deed of trust when we create that note. But why wouldn't you do a deed of trust if you have that option? Some states don't have that option. So, if you're looking at a long foreclosure process where, okay, now I need to get on the docket and get in front of the judge, and this, foreclosure might take a couple of years. Whereas, here in Washington, if it's a deed of trust, it's, 180 days. So
if you're listening elsewhere, you should, always get to know what the foreclosure rules and all that stuff is with a foreclosure attorney in your market. We have an awesome guy on our crew and our team here. If anybody needs that kind of assistance, hit me up on Julie at seattleiinvestmentclub.com and we can talk more about that. But actually, he's been on the podcast. I don't know what number it is. Richard Symes. Joe, maybe that's a good one. The link in this one is Richard's podcast down in the show notes on this. Well, awesome stuff. Let's see. What else can I ask you? Are there different, I guess categories of note investing? And I think you covered it when we talked about performing versus non-performing. But is there something defined at all by dollar amounts? Like, are we talking like you're always going for first lien positions or versus seconds, or what about that?
Yeah, there's, and again, just as in the real estate flipping space or real or landlord space, and there's all different ways to, multifamily versus single family versus, people doing small multis. Even within the note space, there's different ways you can, put that together. So, gosh, I just lost my train of thought, and it was based on your question, and I just lost it.
Well, let me ask you another question. And how much money does an investor need to get started in note investing? That's sort of
okay. Yeah. So, I mean, it depends on what they want to do. There's opportunities to buy small performing notes for under $20,000. Now, are there a lot of them? Well, they're out there. And what I would actually recommend if somebody is wanting to get started in the note business is to identify, is this something I want to do as a business, or is this something that I simply want to add to my portfolio? Maybe I'm a flipper. Maybe I'm a landlord. Maybe I'm a tech person, or I work as at a medical office or something. But I just want to have that additional cash flow either in my life right now or as part of my retirement. You can actually
people say, here's a little saying that I hear people say, right? So yes, there's do what you enjoy, and what you enjoy. Like me, I love being a broker. Like I said, well, that's pretty much a day job, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. So do what you enjoy, and then figure out how you're going to get cash flow, and grow your wealth beyond that. And what are the strategies available to you in order to grow your wealth and get cash flow beyond, your joy. You don't have to feel guilty about a day job or working like I do as a broker, because that means that I'm not just doing nothing and living off my cash flow. Guess what? I could probably do that. Okay. But I choose not to because I'm doing my passion, what I love. Right. So, it's all backing into learning what the different wealth building and cash flow generating, because people like BRRRR. Maybe they want to do BRRRR. That's cash flow investing. Notes is just another card in the deck, right, to consider. It's personality driven, right? Remember there was a big debate on Wari today about discount broker listing service versus actually using a broker, and everybody's talking about the money and the fees, where it really a lot of people choose to do what they do aside from money based on their personality, their risk tolerance, and their control factor, whether they're control freaks or delegators. I mean, there's those factors aside from money that go into making a determination of how you want to put your own personal package together for your entire global investing world and life. Part of that is doing what you love, and maybe that looks like a day job, like a flipper or a broker. Part of that is how you're going to generate cash flow, which is everybody's goal, right? And maybe that looks like Burr, or maybe that looks like note investing, or some of each. And that's the fun part, guys. That's the fun part, is figuring out what fits with your personality, your lifestyle, right? And doing that. There is no right or wrong answer. Just go learn about stuff and figure out what fits you like a glove and makes you happy.
Exactly. And here's the thing too. I mean, if someone's interested in investing in notes, there's a number of different ways that they can do it. They can learn to be a note pro themselves, or if they don't want to do that and they want to be more passive, there's opportunities to invest in note funds. There's opportunities to partner or be part of a note that is being created locally. But there's also opportunities to invest in what's called a partial note. And this is something that a lot of people don't know about, but it's very, very exciting, I think, because you can have someone who, they say, hey, I recognize that real estate's a great way to make money and to create cash flow and to build wealth, but I don't really want to do that. I really do like my day job. And I say, you know what, that's great, because they can invest in a partial note. And let me explain it this way.
Is that called a fractionalized note?
It is not a fractionalized note.
Oh, okay.
It is different than a fractionalized note, because here's the thing. With a fractionalized note, you're actually, breaking down the payment, and you could do that in a partial. But let me explain it this way. Let's say that I have a note, and I have it's throwing off $500 a month payments, and I have about 280 payments remaining on this note. Now, someone might come to me and say, hey, I would like to, get involved with notes, and we discuss it. And, they say, really, I'm really just interested in the cash flow. And so we could sell them maybe 100 of the next payments. And so they're actually on title as the lender for the next 100 months. And they receive that. Suddenly I transfer my interest, and they're receiving the $500 payments instead of me for the next 100 payments. Once that payment number 100 is reached, it assigns back to me, and I get the remaining amount. And so what's cool about that is that their investment to value is much lower than mine. They don't have to be an expert at everything, because I have an interest in the back end of the note. And so if something were to go wrong, where the borrower, might have fallen on hard times and stopped making payment, I can actually step in and help, figure things out. Maybe we're going to do a loan modification.
Vested interest, because you're going to have to get back over.
Exactly. Bingo. And so their investment to value is lower, and their hassle factor is non-existent. I mean, most of the time, if something were to go wrong, I'll tell them, I'll say, hey, this is what's going on, but they don't even have to worry about it. They don't have to deal with it. I'm going to handle it because I want to protect my interest. And so that could be a really great way.
Now, disclaimer, guys, I just want to say we're talking about Marishka and Larry here, right? Not, you got to do your own due diligence on who you're dealing with, your own life and your own note investor.
And quite frankly, Julie, I would expect someone to do their due diligence on us as well. I mean, I'm going to do my due diligence on them because, I want to make sure that it's somebody that I want to do business with. But I would expect them to do the same thing, and check us out. So, and I think that's true of no matter who you're doing business with, check them out.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but anyway, partials is a really, it's a powerful tool that a lot of people don't know about. It is different than a fractionalized interest. It's different than pooling. And then what's cool too is that, if they, let's say the borrower pays off the loan because they sold the house or maybe they refinanced, but, typically people don't stay in their house more than about, 5 to 9 years. So let's just say that it pays off. And so what happens then is it pays off in year 5 and they still have 5 years remaining. They get their remaining entitlement in a lump sum. And then I get my remaining entitlement in a lump sum as well. But then that actually boosts the yield if it pays off early. So we've calculated that, okay, over the next 9 years or whatever, you're going to receive, this yield. This is your annualized return on investment. But if it pays off early, it actually goes up.
Exactly. So awesome. So what exactly though just so we know, what is a fractionalized note? There's a little more hair. You got to know who you're dealing with. You could have trouble. Is there trouble with a fractionalized note that it can become a pain in the ass that everybody can't play along nice together? Or maybe
so again, I'm not an attorney. I'm not going to be giving legal advice, but yeah, there's some concerns about a fractionalized note that including potential securities concerns. But yeah, they just get a lot hairier. A partial can be very.
So it's kind of like when you're an investor and you start talking about subject to investing. You're like, it's out there, it's doable, it's good for some situations, but there's a lot of extra hair, rules, disclosures, things to think about on top. It's kind of like, is it kind of like that kind of thing? You know what I mean? Where you're like,
yeah. I mean, okay. So it's a different, it's different than a subject to. I mean, I don't personally have a problem with a subject to, but the SEC, does have, does care about, fractionalized notes. When we have a person who is buying a partial note, they become the sole owner of that note for a specified period of time. So there's no securities issues, as far as that's concerned. But
we'll leave it at that, so we don't jump into getting too technical because that's not it today. But let's see, what do you think are the top, we'll say 3 or 4 terms or things that a note investor needs to consider when they're getting ready to invest in a particular note? Is it like the amount of money, the length of the term of the investment? Because people might invest in, being private money lenders to flips, which, whether or not those are more risky or not, you might get obviously a higher interest rate back, but ideally the term is hopefully shorter, maybe 4 to 6 or 9 months or something like that. As a note investor, what are the top 3 terms or things to think about? Exit strategy?
Yeah. I mean, so there's a lot of moving parts, right, that you want to be aware of. So let's address the length of time as a separate issue. Let's do that first, and then I want to get back to the top 3 things that you really want to be looking at. So, when you're doing, say, a real estate investment for a rehab or a flip with hard money lending, and you're like, okay, yeah, I'm getting 12%. Well, that's true if the investment lasts for 12 months. You're actually getting 1% per month. So if the project lasts 7 months, your actual return is 7%. You're not getting 12%. You're getting 7% because it's just that long. It's 1% per month. Now, with notes, it's a little bit different because you are, you're doing a longer term. And so personally, I like long-term notes, but, short-term notes have their place as well. And when I talk long and short, I'm talking, 5 years left versus 30 years left or more. But the thing that's nice about, owner-occupant, fully amortized notes is that you don't have to keep recycling that money. When you do a hard money loan, as soon as that loan pays off, you need to go out and hustle and make sure that your money is working for you again. So
you know what? That is a big deal. That frankly is my own personal problem. It is a pain in the ass to have to keep recycling like that. It is a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. Yeah. And so the thing is that, let's say, for example, you had 500,000 out, maybe somebody doesn't have that much out, but let's just say they do, and they're getting 12%. Well, if it's out for, 4 months, okay, well then they're getting 4% interest for those 4 months. And then they're able to redeploy it for a few more months at 10%. You kind of grab at whatever you can, right? Because you want to keep that money in play. Well, let's say, for example, you had that same money in a long-term note at 8%. And you're kind of going, well, gosh, I want to at least be in the double digits. Well, here's the thing. It's in that 8% note month after month after month. And you're not having to keep moving that money. And so your returns can actually be higher. And then again, I'm going to come back to, if it pays off early, your yield goes through the roof. And why is that? It's because it's fully amortized. So, let's look at, for example, if you had a note of, say, $50,000 and it's amortized and it's at 5%. And it's amortized over 30 years, what's going to happen is your principal and interest, your total payment is like, say, around 270, 268, somewhere in there. Your principal payment is only $60 a month or so, maybe going up to 62 in the first year. And the rest of it is interest. So you're getting somewhere between 205, 208% every month in interest. So after year one, that $50,000 note, the unpaid balance is only down to 49 and change, 49.2, something like that. But yet you've received all of these interest payments. So you've received $7,500 in your first year, but the balance, about $2,500 in the first year, but your balance has only gone down about $750. So that's where you can boost your yield if they pay off early. So
right.
the returns that we talk about in notes, those are almost kind of worst case scenarios. And so there's a lot that goes into the, the amortization. And so the return on investment.
See that, okay, because I'm just listening here as this is so exciting. It's weird that if you are loaning, let's say on a flip and you're collecting 12%, and you loan that for 4 to 6 months or whatever, you're only getting that 4 to 6%, really, right?
Really, yes.
But yet the reverse, you hear people say, oh, I'm getting 5% or 6% on this note, but in reality, you're probably getting closer to what the flipper thinks they're getting because of the way it works.
Yeah, and I don't know how.
You know what I mean? It's like the front cover of the book doesn't tell the story.
It doesn't tell the story. You really have to dive deep. And so I don't know if you've ever noticed, but a lot of times when people ask, well, what type of returns, what's your yield on your notes? And I sometimes really hesitate because I can't explain it in 2 seconds or 5 minutes even, in a way that they're going to understand the difference because of what they're used to hearing. They're used to hearing simple interest. They're used to hearing simple interest only. And when you're talking amortization, it's a whole different ballgame. And not only that, every month that my note pays, I become safer. So let's say, Julie, that you have a note that you're getting 12%.
Which is the opposite, maybe in flip.
Yes.
Every note,
So let's say you're investing in a flip, and you decide that it's okay, you're gonna loan this money for 6 months. They said, yeah, we're probably gonna get this project done in 4 months, but let's just be safe, and we're gonna do it for 6 months, right? And you're like, okay, good, we've got a couple month cushion. That's awesome. What happens at month 8 if the project isn't done? Do you start freaking out a little bit?
Well, what happens is you wish you would have talked to our friends at Certain Lending, who would have told you to put a 12-month term on your flip in the first place so you could avoid all your extension fees. Shout out to Certain Lending.
That's a good point. And he's an awesome guy, and so Certain Lending, for sure. But okay, let's just say, let me take it a worst case scenario. Okay, you listened to me, and you and Certain Lending, and you did a 12-month term, and now it's at 18 months. Now it's at 24 months.
Yeah.
How are you feeling? Are you getting anxious? I mean, you're getting interest, which is great. Oh, maybe not every month. But so, and I don't think that would necessarily happen to you, because I know you really vet your deals and you vet your borrowers. And you
it can happen to anybody.
But it could happen to
the best people in the last half of this year.
Yeah.
The last half of 2018, this exact situation happens, right? So again, this is all about you guys just knowing that there are alternatives, and that there.
And I'm not trying to beat up. And I'm not trying to beat up hard money lending or flippers, but what I am drawing a comparison that every month that my borrower makes a payment on a note, and they're reducing their principal balance, that puts me in a safer position, because my principal is being returned every single month. And so every month that they're in that deal, they are more vested, and they are more at risk, and I am less at risk.
Well, what happens as a note investor if you, for whatever reason, need your money back early? Then you sell a partial, or what? How does that? What's
Certainly, I mean, so it's not going to be a short-term answer, probably, unless you're, constantly networking with folks. But yeah, you could absolutely sell a partial.
Larry and Marishka, and let them figure it out for you. Is that one of the answers? I think might be.
I'm sorry. I think we were both talking at the same time, and I didn't quite hear what you said.
Oh, I said, if you get in that situation, call Larry and Marishka or Beth, over at Family Lending, and let them help you figure it out. It'd be one of the first answers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because there's folks out there who are interested in, in the long-term cash flow play. And there's a lot of money that is sitting on the sidelines right now because people just don't know what to invest in. And so, it's a matter of talking to people and letting them know what opportunities are. And in our business, I mean, quite frankly, we always have this kind of yin and yang, where we're either don't have enough deal flow, or we don't have enough investors. And right now we have more people who are interested in buying notes than we have deals available. And it just kind of goes back and forth like that. Although I think that might be turning again. I mean, who knows? But that's
a great point here. And one of the questions I wanted to ask you, how do you, this all sounds, everybody's probably their heart's beating fast like mine is.
Yeah.
How do you generate leads? We all know how to generate leads for flips and burrs and land deals, but how do you generate note leads?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. So a lot of it is networking. I network with a lot of other note people in the business, and quite frankly, I'm happy to buy a partial. I'm happy to sell a partial. So when we have, just kind of depends on where they are in their cycle. I was just at an event down in Dallas this weekend, and I have a need for some notes for some of our investors. And I was talking with a guy down there who we've done business with in the past. And he's like, great, I've got a bunch of notes. He says, some of them are on my website, some of them aren't, but they're all, good quality notes. And he'd like to sell some of them or sell partials on them. So part of it is just networking with other folks.
It's kind of like how other flippers and stuff would get a deal from a wholesaler, sort of.
Yeah, I don't have time to do this deal right now, or I don't have the bandwidth to do this deal. It's the same principle. But then we also, just like wholesalers, we generate our own leads as well. We do, quite frankly, we do direct mail to people who have created seller finance. And so that's one way that we generate leads. Many times they don't even realize that their note has value and that they can sell it. And then we've also developed relationships with various hedge funds, and sometimes they have assets that, maybe either don't quite fit their criteria. They're good notes, but they have very strict criteria of what they want, and so they have assets that they want to sell. And or sometimes they just need to raise capital. And that's the same thing that we do too. I mean, sometimes we need to raise capital. Sometimes we, want to be acquiring more notes. So just depends on where you are in the cycle.
So what about, let's talk about exit strategies for a minute.
Yeah. So
give us like the standard exit that and what would be more like you have to, just like a flipper, obviously their number one exit is to flip the house and cash out and get their profit they were going for. Things don't always go as planned. So then they look at maybe, renting it, keeping it, converting it to a conventional loan, or getting some private money to take out their hard money loan and hanging on to it as a rental for a while till they can, either sell it or, end up making the profit they were shooting for, or cash out or do something.
Right.
How it works with different exit strategies as things pivot and change in note investing.
Yeah. So, I mean, with performing notes, there's going to be fewer exit strategies, right? Because it's a performing note. I mean, a lot of people are buying it just because they like that return on investment. They like that steady monthly cash flow to either, help supplement their income, pay for, a lot of times people will take a note and they'll say, you know what, the monthly payments here are going to pay for my car. And then once my car is paid off, it's going to pay for this, or, whatever.
I can't stop thinking about private school monthly payment.
There you go. You can, a lot of people earmark them for, maybe a utility bill or a school tuition or whatever,
Exactly.
And so sometimes people just don't want the hassle, and they're fine with the return that they're getting because it's much better than they can get from the bank. And again, it's secured by real estate, and it's becoming more secure with every payment that's made. So some people just want to buy and hold them. And that's just like your buy and hold investor who, I'm never going to sell my rental. I'm just going to hang on to it. Some people just buy notes and they just hang on to it.
Without the hassle of the tenant.
Right. Without the hassle. You know what? If the toilet backs up or the roof leaks, do you think they call Wells Fargo? No, they do not. I'm the note investor. I hold the note. They don't call me. They deal with it themselves.
Have you ever had somebody that has some sort of major repair like a roof? I mean, what an opportunity. You're like, sure, I'll lend you the money.
Well, typically, I suppose that could be an opportunity, but I'll tell you what, most of the time, the borrowers don't even know who I am. Because I use a third-party servicing company, they don't know who I am. And so, there was a situation where we had a note, it was up in Michigan, and I could see on the servicing notes, because they make contact with these folks, what was happening. And he'd stopped making payments for a period of time, and he had lost his job. And then like right around Christmas time, their water heater went out. And so he had some hiccups, he had some problems, and he was trying to catch up. He was making payments here and there, but just falling a little bit further behind. And so we reached out to him through our servicing company and said, hey, let's do a forbearance. And what that did is it basically just brought him current. All of his back payments that he owed us, he still owed us, but they were just added on to the back end. And now we were receiving interest on those as well. So we weren't out anything. It allowed us to help him catch up. He no longer had to worry about late fees. It preserved his dignity. He wanted to stay in the house, and we weren't out anything. We were in a position to do that. So
it's kind of like a refresh, restart, redo.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, in a way, it's almost like I almost look at it as impact investing, because I feel like I can have a really positive impact on people's lives. Right.
Yeah.
So with performing notes, kind of getting back to exit strategies, I mean, you can just buy and hold, or maybe you buy a note and you take those payments for, a couple of years or what have you, and you're collecting interest in the principal. the loan balance isn't going down that much because, the earlier years, more of it's to interest. And then you might sell that note. Or, like you said, you might sell a partial of that note and recoup some of your money that way. So
is that a strategy then? Is that kind of like a thing where you'd rather buy a note at the front of the loan term where you're getting that interest? Is there, you know what I'm saying? Is there a strategy for the timing of how many, of what point in the loan term you buy in or sell?
Yes and no. And there's a lot of nuances to that. I mean, the bottom line is the way yields are calculated is they're calculated over the life of the loan. And so the note rate might be 8% and your yield might be more than that. Or, I mean, I've purchased notes that have, a 2% note rate because they were modified. But because my discount was so great, my yield was in the double digits. And, but they had a good pay history once their note had been modified. So I felt really comfortable with that. So, I mean, we always, like, if we have a partial note, we always give the front end of the note to the partial buyer because, quite frankly, they want to start getting that monthly payment right away. And they are, you can see on the amortization schedule, the majority of the payments are interest, but the value of the note changes as it goes through its life cycle. So, everybody kind of has their own thing. And I remember now what I had forgotten to answer. You were asking about firsts and seconds. We primarily deal in first, but there's a whole market of folks who like to deal in second position notes. So,
do you ever worry about investing in states that have like natural disasters like floods and tornadoes, or is that actually opportunistic somehow?
Well, we just actually bought some insurance, force-placed lender insurance on a property that we have it's not a coastal state, but it's next to a coastal state. Does that make sense? Or a county, rather. And so, our borrowers, for the most part, are going to be paying, taxes and insurance as part of their payment. And if it's not rolled into their payment, then our servicer keeps an eye on it and makes sure that the property, that insurance and taxes are up to date. Now, if they see that they're not, I, as a lender, can go ahead and put in forced placed insurance. I can pay for the insurance policy. Now you want to make sure that this is in your note and that's part of your due diligence. I can charge them for the insurance. They're going to pay more for it because I had to pay for it. And that's just, more expensive by nature, but I can add that into the back end of my note. So I will be compensated for it at some point, but that secures my position. And so to your point, a coastal, if it's a county that's like right on the coast, that's going to be a tier 1 state for insurance purposes. And then the next county over is tier 2. And those do come with higher rates just because, like if you're in the Southeast, for example, because of chances of hurricanes and that sort of thing. But yeah, we just like to make sure that property is insured because that's protecting our value of our note.
Awesome stuff. So what do you think the hardest part about note investing is? And we'll start to wind down here.
I would say for most folks, it's wrapping your head around the idea that you don't own the property. A lot of folks get really wrapped around the axle at, what the property looks like, what type of property it is. Certainly those things are a factor, and where it's located is going to affect your ability if you had to take the note back for some reason. Do you
think about resale value or anything like that, or appraisal? You check like, it'd probably appraise at whatever.
Well, that's part of my due diligence.
Yeah,
so
right.
when I acquire a note, I mean, there's 3 things that'll blow up a note deal, right? They are taxes. You got to make sure that the taxes are paid. And you can check in most counties, you can check that online. You can see if that's part of your, that they're supposed to be escrowed as part of the note agreement. And, we board them with a professional third-party loan servicer and they collect those taxes. And so I prefer that. But, if it's not escrowed, then I just make sure that they're being paid, and I find out what their redemption period is. If I will they go out, 2 years or 3 years before they might seize the property? Because that could, they come in first. They can blow up my note deal. So I want to make sure the taxes are paid. The second is title. Is there a proper chain of title? And, many title issues can be remedied. But quite frankly, you want to make sure that, that there aren't too many issues, and that also the person selling you the note has the right to do so, that they actually own the note. So that's a big deal. And then what
about like a lien getting on the property during the term of the note? I guess, I don't know why you said that. So
Yeah. So, I mean, if I'm in first position and there's another lien that happens later, I'm not going to be too concerned about that. Because by default, they're going to be in a junior position.
Right.
A lot of people get concerned about IRS liens. Well, the fact of the matter is the IRS will place a lien against a property if that borrower owes the IRS money. However, the IRS only places it against the property because that's where they can get leverage. If the borrower moves, if they sell the house or just move out or whatever, it's really not that big a deal to contact the IRS and say, hey, look, I'm the lender. The person who owes you money no longer resides in the house. They no longer have a claim to the house. And they're like, oh, okay. And they'll release the lien.
Right.
So,
I definitely, it's a lot easier than people think.
It is.
That or a DSA lien, if you can prove there's no equity and that they're not getting any money out, you have a road to getting those removed is not that difficult. But again, I don't know, talk to your attorneys.
Yeah, and we use attorneys to help us, and different attorneys in different states and what have you. Servicing companies, again, if you have a servicing company, you want to make sure they're licensed in the state where your note resides. And
how much does a servicer cost?
It's so cheap. You're going to love this. It's typically less than $35 a month. Wow. So you compare that to property management, which is going to be 8 to 12% of the monthly payment plus first month rent in most instances. Servicing is super cheap. Now, if it goes into non-performing, they're having to do a little more work. It can be more expensive than that, but I usually pay somewhere between $15 and $35, depending on the servicing company I'm using. And they all have their pros and cons. Some are better than some things than others.
Well, let me circle back because I don't know if we answered it. What's the hardest part, do you think, about note investing with everything that you know? I always think it comes back to lead generation. Once you know once you know what you're doing.
Yeah, I guess once you know what you're doing, you put systems in place, right? Whether you're flipping houses or you're doing hard money lending or you're doing note investing or you're doing property management, you put systems in place. And once you know what you're doing, it's just a matter of, working your systems and working your network.
So again, being consistent, right? Everybody usually falls or gets behind because they're inconsistent with their systems. So
Absolutely. And that ties in directly with something I mentioned early in the call about wealth preservation. And with notes being considered a, quote, passive investment, I would say that there might be a tendency sometimes for people to just set it and forget it. And while you can do that to some extent, the reality is you want to be monitoring your money and really, making sure that, not only is it growing, but are you preserving it? So if you find that you're in a situation where, the fees or something are more than the income, or maybe they've, stopped paying and you're not staying on top of that, shame on you. So I suppose complacency might be an issue for some folks. So yeah, you just want to make sure that you're constantly monitoring things and growing and preserving your wealth.
Exactly. Awesome.
But let me go back to the third thing, because there were three things I said that would blow up a note deal. And the third thing is really just blight, whether it's a blighted property or a blighted neighborhood. If the property has fallen into just absolute disrepair, then obviously the value of that property securing your note is not good. And there's things that you can do as a lender. I mean, it says in the note that they have to keep the house in good repair, yada, yada. So there's things that you can do there. And then, if you're evaluating a note, you might want to be looking at that. And there's places in, Detroit or Gary, Indiana, or, parts of Louisiana that, you just look, gosh, those neighborhoods are just really bad. And I just, maybe you want to go in and revitalize them, and that's awesome. But you might also just look at, am I going to get my money back out? So,
what's interesting I'm thinking about too is like, let me ask you, and I promise we're going to wrap up. I could talk to you all day. But people are all into, well, I can't find any good deals in Washington. I need to, invest out of state because the returns and the yields are higher in Pittsburgh or wherever else, right? Well, of course, we all understand that. But when we're talking about a note, those same reasons of why there are low yields isn't the exact same thing. Is it more like you invest out of state because you can buy notes at a lower cash outlay threshold? I mean, I imagine you can get the same deal on a note here as you can in Washington as you can in Pittsburgh if you can find the right level of entry as far as cash outlay goes.
Correct. And so here's the thing. In general, the housing prices here are going to be higher. And so the note prices here are, the note amounts here are going to be higher. And so when you tack on the interest rates generally, and I use that in big quotes, are going to be lower in say, Washington State, Oregon, Idaho, or Oregon, California, because that interest rate combined with the higher loan amount is going to result in a much higher payment. And so affordability becomes a factor. Whereas if you're looking, say, in the Midwest or the Southeast, with property prices being lower, you might see a note rate written at, 8, 10, 12%. And
because it's like a car payment.
It's like a car payment. It's not that much money. And so then there's the thing of
so nobody focuses on the rate, they focus on the payment amount.
Exactly. And it doesn't make that much difference when you're talking of a note, a mortgage that's say, 50,000 versus 70,000. It's not going to make that much difference when you're talking about a 5% rate versus a 10% rate. It seems like a big deal, but when you're in that price band, it doesn't make that much difference. And so the other reason why people might go out of state and go for those lower price band notes is simply diversification. So, around here, your note amounts are going to be higher as a general rule. And so if you have a finite amount of money, you could plop it into one note here, whereas you might plop it into 5 or 6 notes in the Midwest.
Right. Unless you can find a partial, right?
Unless you can find a partial, and again, it's all degrees of investment and different types of entry, just depending on what your risk tolerance is, what your interest is in, being active in the business versus just, wanting to have that cash flow. Are
there institutional funds, I'm sure, out there that just buy these notes and they're in the business of they're totally in the business of selling partials because they know they have the funds, right? Of course, there must be.
That's a good question. There's actually fewer than you would think. There's definitely institutional funds, and there are a lot of hedge funds that actively buy notes and hold them and, make distributions to their investors. So there's a lot of note funds out there. Are there a lot of them doing partials? I would say not so many.
I wonder if there's a reason for that. Just because they don't have to and it's work? I don't know. Maybe there's a reason,
Yeah, I think that might be part of it. It just adds another layer of complexity that, they're already making their money. And so, but.
Well, it's like the big institutional buyers at the auctions. They don't do lease options and stuff like that.
Right.
Because they're like one trick ponies, kind of, I guess I'd say. So.
Exactly. And you have to be explaining that. You know, you need to be set up to manage it because, I mean, quite frankly, if I have a partial buyer, I am watching their investment like a hawk, not only because I want to protect my investment, but I want them to have a good experience. And I want them to say, you know what, that was so great. That was so easy. I'd like to do it. I've got a little more money. I'd like to do it again.
But how are you making money when you sell the partial?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm recapitalizing some of the money that I put out there to buy the note, and now I'm able to go out and buy another note, and I just do it over and over again.
But why buy another note? Why not just stick with the note you got? Where's the
Well, I mean, because I'm out there sourcing the deals and I'm buying the notes at a discount. I mean, my yield, quite frankly, is going to be higher than a passive investor. That's just the way it is. I'm sourcing the note.
So it's the spread. You're getting better. You're getting better yields being in going out buying your notes. And I got you.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I mean, they're going to buy a partial, and that's going to help recapitalize me, and then I can go out and do it again. Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, as you guys have figured out, this topic is super awesome. There is, I mean, what a great investment opportunity if you can learn about notes and fit that into your world wherever you want to fit it in. If it feels like something you might be interested in. I know that I'm sure that Marishka is happy to talk to you guys on that, as well as, like I said, Beth Johnson at Family Lending, who we're going to be tapping on the shoulder here. But Marishka, for those people who want to get in touch with you and talk more or learn more, or want to buy one of your partials or whatever, just get in the world of Larry and Marishka. What's the best way for them to do that?
I'd say there's two ways. One certainly would be at our website, evergreensuccess.com. There's a form that you can fill out and say, hey, I'm interested, blah, blah, blah. And we can, set up a time to chat. The other is, hey, I like to hang out with Julie, and she's got this awesome, meetup that she does on Tuesdays, and I'm there whenever I can be. And then you can meet me face to face. So.
Right. And Secret Sauce is, we're going to be having, Marisha's going to host another one for me, Larry and Marisha here, that we're going to be rolling out pretty soon, which I also will be popping into a little further down south. So we're not ready to talk about that quite yet, but something that's coming down the pipeline. So this is, I could go on forever, but I got to put a listing on myself, my own joy.
And we didn't even get to all the bullet points that I wanted to talk about, but that's okay.
Well, guess what? Maybe we were going to do round 2 because, as you know, we have our secret VIP meeting coming up here in September that we're probably going to have all kinds of stuff to talk about after that, right?
Exactly.
But guys, and Beth and Marishka, shout out to the ladies of real estate. Whoop, whoop, bringing the knowledge here today. And what I want to do is I want to say that we are going to attempt and have a panel in mid-September, around 11, 12, 13th September, something like that. We're going to nail down the date. And we are going to, Marishka, you're in, right?
Absolutely.
And we are going to have a super stellar special guest also in town at that time, which I won't announce yet. That will be,
I know who it is.
Yeah, and Beth, if you're listening, our friend Beth Johnson at Flynn Family Lending, we're going to tap on your shoulder, as well as a couple other of our friends in town here. So mid-September, look for us, Seattle Investors Club, our quarterly event. That's more of an evening 6:30 to 9 type event that we'll announce. Speaking of, just now I'm going to wrap up with a little admin and announcements here. We are hosting a badass quarterly event coming up June 25th, which is, I believe, a Tuesday. Is that right, Josephine?
Correct.
June 25th at Renton Technical College from 6:30 to, we'll call it 9. We have our local homegrown celebrity, Andrew, we'll call him Drew Niffen, is coming to talk to us about multifamily investing, coaching on multifamily deals, how to underwrite those deals, how to get plugged into multifamily at whatever level or interest point that you have in multifamily, with help from Drew and his team, as well as how you can plug in if you want to just do it passively. Drew Niffin with Nighthawk Equity. His partner is Michael Blanc. If you guys are interested in listening out in Guru Land for multifamily, you'll recognize that name. But Drew is going to be with us June 25th. Go on to, where should they RSVP for that, Joe?
Definitely on meetups.com. So if you search for Seattle Investors Club on Meetups, you will find it right on there.
There you go. Go to meetup.com or meetups.com, whatever it's called. Search for Seattle Investors Club. RSVP for our June 25th event, which will be on, I think, a Tuesday evening. And as well, that is also a place where you can RSVP for our weekly broker investor masterminds, like a roundtable coaching where we go to Angelo's over in Burien.
Oh man, that crab cannelloni I had was awesome.
Beef cannelloni and real estate, hand in hand. There you go. Or whatever else you want to get. I don't know if some of you know where Angelo's is, but it is a Burien institution that we are lucky enough to be welcome there in our own private banquet room every Tuesday from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. We get to look at each other in the face, a bunch of investors and brokers and, flippers and lenders and hard money lenders and conventional lenders and software, owners of software companies that are related to real estate. It's badass. You're going to like it. Try it if you haven't tried it once. Come check it out and join us for lunch. And join the conversation. Marishka's there most weeks. I'm there every week. Some of our other friends, like Nee from Certain Lending, shout out to Certain Lending, who we love, is there every week, as well as a bunch of others. Keith Pilch from Loan Depot, our boy Keith, shout out. But join us. It's super fun, and you will bring all your questions, all your problems, all your jokes, all your deals. And just bring your good personality and come hang out with us. So it is Monday right now. You guys are going to hear this on a Thursday or a Friday. So I hope to see you this following Tuesday after you're listening to this podcast. So Joe, where are the details of where they can, again, go to Meetup, search Seattle Investors Club to RSVP. If you don't want to RSVP for Tuesday, just show up. Okay? And Angelo's and Burien. Joe, where can they find the show notes for today?
Yeah, the show notes for this episode are at seattleinvestorsclub.com/80. That's seattleinvestorsclub.com/80. And remember that if you like this show, we would love for you to review it on iTunes. And lastly, it is free to subscribe. So hit the subscribe button, and we'd love you for it.
Joe, I hear a lot of echoing, so I wonder if the entire Cinque Terre region is hearing you right now as we echo and take SIC podcast international, right? Who knows? Crazier things happen. So we love you guys. Marishka, thanks again.
Oh,
Joe,
thank you so much. This is awesome.
Good stuff. It's exciting. We will be talking more about this topic not only in September, but whenever you guys want to, give us a shout. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Seattle Investors Club podcast. If you have questions that you'd like to have answered on the show, shoot us an email at info@seattleinvestorsclub.com. Now go out, take that action, and build that real estate business. Thanks for listening.